My sister and her husband mocked me in front of everyone. So I took back everything I ever gave them and walked away without a word. I never imagined I'd spend my 35th birthday walking into someone else's celebration. But here I am. I'm Claire Reynolds, 35 years old, and I live in the quiet suburbs of Glenview, Illinois. Today, my sister Marissa's backyard looks like a pastel dream, balloons in soft pinks and mint greens arc over folding chairs. And a happy 7th birthday banner flutters between two oak posts. A hum of conversation drifts across the lawn, guests lifting plastic cups of punch and leaning in to compliment the spread on the picnic table. Sandwiches, deviled eggs, fruit skewers, and a magician's props tucked in one corner. Marissa greets me with a tight smile, and I feel that familiar pinch in my chest as I catch her eyes. She's radiant in a floral sundress, hair pinned back, hosting the party she couldn't have paid for without me. My heartbeat slows when I see my nephew, little Jonah, bouncing in his mother's arms as he waits to blow out the candles on his cake. Castle-shaped confection rimmed with pastel icing. Kids press close, elbows bumping as laughter swirls. Through the late afternoon breeze, I clutch my small gift bag in one hand and an unassuming white envelope in the other. Inside the bag is a set of books I picked out at the local bookstore last week, The Adventures of Pippin the Brave, which I know Jonah will love. The envelope holds a check for his school fund, the same one I've been tucking into our mailbox every month. No grand gesture, just another quiet promise to help him chase his dreams even when they've forgotten to thank me. My heart stutters when I step through the gate and all eyes flick toward me. Curiosity mixed with a hint of expectation. I let my gaze roam over the gathering. Marissa chatting with Grandma Ellen near the lemonade dispenser. The kids chasing bubbles under the oak's shade. Tom, my brother-in-law's in an eyebrow as if he's about to say something witty. But instead, he simply watches, glass in hand. I offer my sister a genuine smile and, for a split second, I almost believe everything is perfect. Then I remember the months I've covered rent, when Marissa's hours were cut, the phone calls I took at midnight after Jonah spiked a fever, the tuition checks I slipped in her mailbox before the semester deadline. None of it ever warranted more than a passing thanks before life moved on. I step forward, breathing in the sweet smell of cake and fresh-cut grass. Tom's smirk tells me he's waiting for a punchline. I force my cheeks to relax, but my fingers tighten around the envelope. Marissa's gaze flickers with something I can't read. Gratitude, obliviousness. I'll find out soon enough. I tuck the gift bag under my arm and lift the envelope, ready to meld into the crowd, but something in me shifts. The warm breeze carries a question I can't ignore. After all I've done, where do I really belong here? I felt the weight of every eye on me the moment Tom raised the knife. He stood at the head of the picnic table, cake knife glinting in the afternoon sun, as if about to perform a grand magic trick. All right, everyone, time to slice into this masterpiece, he announced, theatrically angling the blade. Kids pressed forward, excited squeals mingling with the adults' polite claps. I held my breath, heart thudding against my ribs, fingernails grazing the edge of my paper plate. Grin was too wide. He cut a generous wedge, then turned his wrist to present it to me like a prize. Here you go, Claro, our family wallet, he crowed, voice pitched so the dozen adults and half a dozen children could hear. The knife hovered over the table for emphasis, then he withdrew it with a flourish, eyes dancing. Laughter erupted. Around me, sharp as broken glass. A few kids giggled, clutching foam swords. A couple of cousins pointed, whispering. Marissa's face stiffened, her mouth parting as if to speak, then closing again under the gaze of our parents. Grandma Ellen fluttered a hand to her chest, eyebrows knitting, but she too stayed silent. I forced a smile, reaching out to take the plate. My fingers trembled against the flimsy plastic. Thanks, I murmured, voice small, an apology, a plea, an echo of every unreturned favor I'd offered. The cake slice wobbled where I held it, the frosting threatening to slide off like melting goodwill. I thought you might like the biggest slice, Tom added, as if really doing me a favor. He winked at a circle of onlookers. Can't have our favorite sugar bank running on empty. He chuckled again, and more laughter followed. A ripple that swallowed the table. I looked down at the cake. its pastel icing a stark contrast to the burning heat behind my eyes. Every forkful I'd bought, the rent checks, the utility bills, the medical copays, all counted for nothing in this moment of public humiliation. I felt the sting of betrayal, sharper than any words. They saw the money, not the sister or the Aunt Marissa hovered behind the table, shifting from one foot to the other. "Tom," she said quietly, but her voice was thin. "Don't." He shrugged and passed the knife to her, still smiling. The glitter in his eyes wasn't kindness, it was ownership. As if my sacrifices were tokens they could joke about, borrow, against whenever they pleased. I lifted the plate, stepping back toward the shade of the oak, the cake slice in my hand, suddenly heavy. A bead of sweat slid down my temple. I could taste the insult on my tongue before I even bit into the cake's sweet sugar. Bitter aftertaste. "Go on, Claire," someone called from the crowd. And I heard that undertone again. Our family wallet, not Claire, the person. The bank. The ATM. I pressed my lips together, nodding curtly, and moved away before anyone could see the shake in my hand. Marissa caught up to me, voice low. "I'm sorry, Claire." "He didn't, it's fine," I said, but my voice cracked. I glanced at her, saw the guilt flicker behind her eyes. Her shoulders slumped. She wanted to help me, but she couldn't. Her life was stitched together with my money. I found a folding chair under the oak and dropped into it, setting the cake plate on my knee. The laughter and chatter buzzed around me like angry bees. I stared at the frosting, imagining it dyed in shades of my resentment. Somewhere beyond the branches, little Jonah chased a bubble that sailed toward the sky. I watched it pop and disappear, and I realized I was done disappearing, too. I pressed my lips against the fork, holding it poised over the cake as if on the edge of a decision. Then I sat very still, tasting more than vanilla and sugar. I tasted years of unacknowledged debts, stacked up like bills in an envelope no one bothered to open. I realized that today, I'd be the one to decide how this slice and every slice to come would play out, and I knew what I wouldn't do next. I wasn't prepared for how loud silence could feel. The laughter from the table dimmed behind me. As I slid into the cool shadow of the oak, I hugged the cake plate to my chest, pressing my fingers into the flimsy plastic until I felt the tremor in my own body. Around me, children wailed for another magic trick, and adults swapped stories. But every word felt distant, like I was underwater. My pulse hammered in my ears. My mind replayed Tom's jab, our family wallet, and the sting spread through my chest. How had it come to this? I'd paid for Jonah's braces, covered Marissa's car repairs, and bankrolled every surprise birthday and holiday feast. Yet here I was, reduced to a punchline. I closed my eyes and let my breath steady, focusing on the rustle of leaves overhead. The shade was cool, comforting. I glanced at my plate. The cake sat untouched, frosting glistening. I knew that slice was meant to remind me of my place, and I refused to swallow it, Claire. Marissa's voice was soft, hesitant. I opened my eyes to see her hovering at the tree's edge, worry etched in her features. Her sundress fluttered in the breeze as she approached. I watched her approach in slow motion, each step dragging against my patience. "Stop overreacting," she said low, head tilted, as if I were a child. "You know we need your help." The words cut sharper than Tom's taunt. Help. As if I were a lifeline instead of a sister. As if my sacrifices were automatic owed. I looked up, meeting her eyes. The swirl of other faces behind her blurred Grandma Ellen's feverish smile, Tom's smug curl of lips, Jonah chasing a bubble that glowed in the sun. Marissa's gaze held a flicker of guilt, but also expectation, that I'd apologize for feeling hurt. I drew in a slow breath. "Need my help?" I echoed, voice low. "Is that what you call it?" I tilted the plate so she could see the cake. "Every bill I ever paid, every time I answered your late night call, every tuition check I dropped in the mail, that was just help." Her mouth opened, then closed. She pressed her lips together, jaw tight. "Claire, you know I appreciate everything, do I?" I asked, voice gaining strength. I set the plate on the grass between us, and frosting smeared onto the green. "Because I don't feel appreciated. I feel used." Marissa's lips quivered. "I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't change anything," I interrupted, stepping back. The ache in my chest blossomed into ice. I've stopped counting how many times I've apologized for something that wasn't my fault. She swallowed. I just don't justify him, I said quietly, nodding toward the backyard where Tom was joking with Grandma Ellen. This isn't about him. It's about all of you. The way you take my money for granted, then laugh when you think it's convenient. Marissa's eyes pooled with tears. She looked away, voice barely above a whisper. I don't know what to say. I don't need you to say anything right now, I replied. I picked up the plate, wiping frosting onto the grass. I just need to stand here and own my anger instead of swallowing it. A breeze ruffled my hair. Somewhere behind me, a child burst into tears over a popped bubble. Marissa took a shaky step forward, then hesitated. Caught between wanting to console me and fearing her own guilt, I pressed my lips together and nodded once, curtly. I'm going back inside when I'm ready. Without another word, I turned from her and headed toward the gate, each step echoing the decision growing in my chest. I would no longer let my generosity be their weapon. And when they realized how quiet the party had become without me, I would be long gone. I never saw gratitude in their eyes until it was too late. Sunlight danced through the oak's leaves, casting dappled shadows across my face as I stood apart from the party. My palms still tingled from the cake plate I'd dropped on the grass. Somewhere behind me, laughter tinkled like wind chimes, but I heard a harsher echo, the memory of my phone buzzing at midnight. Tom's voice on the line telling me the car had broken down again, Marissa begging me to come pick her up. I closed my eyes, and the backyard faded. I was back in urgent care, pacing the waiting room, when Jonah's fever spiked. I felt his tiny hand slip into mine. Watched his lids flutter as I whispered promises I'd always keep. Then I was at home, the clock reading 2:13 a.m., paging through Excel sheets to figure out how I could cover Marissa's rent and still afford groceries. I remembered the tuition check I mailed last semester before the deadline, sealing the envelope with a prayer that he'd make honor roll. Each memory pulsed like a heartbeat. Late-night consolations over job losses, emergency car repairs, midnight runs for cough syrup. I saw the relief in Marissa's eyes, brief but bright, before she buried it under the next crisis. I remembered sliding a stack of bills onto their kitchen counter, voice soft. I've got this. No one ever asked how I managed it. No one ever said, thank you for holding us together. I blinked, and the party returned around me. I watched Grandma Ellen drifting between tables, compliments softly falling from her lips as she told Tom what a wonderful host he was. She paused by the photographer, cooing over the kids' bubbles, then wandered off to chat with the neighbor who'd brought potato salad. No mention of me anywhere. A pang of fury tightened my chest. I felt every unspoken debt like a weight pressing down. The blue sturdy envelope I'd brought for Jonah's tuition fund lay crumpled in my purse, ready to add another payment to the invisible tally. I let my fingers close around it, feeling the smooth paper under my skin. Marissa found me leaning against the oak trunk, arms crossed over my chest. Her lips trembled. Claire, she said, voice low, are you okay? I tilted my head, offering her a small, bitter smile. Do you know how many times I've been your safety net? I didn't wait for her answer. I stepped back, uncapping my voice like I'd never dared before. I showed up when you called at 2 a.m. I covered the dentist bill after you skipped payments. I paid the rent when the job market crashed. I even paid for this party, the cake, the magician, the food. Her mouth opened, then closed. She searched my face, guilt flaring in her eyes. I'm sorry, she whispered. Sorry, I echoed, voice rising. When have words ever changed the balance sheet of my sacrifices? I drew the envelope from my purse and held it out. Here, add this to your pile of thanks. Her hand fluttered toward it, then dropped. Claire, don't, I said, my voice firm. I crushed the envelope in my fist. I'm done being your secret benefactor. The hush that followed sounded like stunned thunder. I glanced toward the gift table across the lawn, where pastel wrapping paper and rubbery boughs lay piled. No one had suspected I was behind it all. No one had noticed. But now, I was laying it bare. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of grass and frosting. Somewhere, a child's laugh rang out bright, innocent. I felt a twist in my heart. I had given everything, and they had given me nothing in return. I wiped my palm on my jeans, letting the envelope drop to the ground. The paper fluttered like a wounded bird against the grass. As I took a breath and squared my shoulders, I would no longer be the invisible bank account. And as Grandma Ellen's voice called out my name, trembling, urgent, let it drift past me. Because for the first time, I knew what I deserved. And I wasn't afraid to take it now. I had to decide what came next. I could feel every eye tracking my steps. The birthday party buzz dimmed when I pushed through the last cluster of guests and strode toward the gift table. My pulse hammered in my ears, matching the thrum of my own determination. I didn't slow down, didn't let the laughter or curious glances distract me. Past pastel bows and half-opened packages lay the crisp, white envelope I'd slipped onto the table that morning meant for Jonah's school fund. Tucked between a Snoopy lunchbox and a board game. I lifted the envelope, my fingers brushing its cool surface. It belonged to me as much as to them, yet they never saw what it cost. I remembered the nights I stayed up balancing budgets so I could keep slipping these checks into their mailbox, blessing their lives without expecting applause. And now, as I held it, I felt something shift. Pride, fury, relief. "Hey, Tom's voice cut through the hum. He stepped out from under the oak, beer in hand, chest puffed. "That one's important." His grin was sharp. "School money, right? Thought you loved spoiling Jonah." I turned, jaw set. He regarded me with amusement, as if this were another chance to bait me. His laughter died before it escaped, caught off guard by the cool calm in my eyes. "I did," I said, voice even. "But not like this anymore." He took a step closer. "Come on, Claire." I held up the envelope. "This was for next semester's tuition. I'm taking it back." His brow arched. "You can't do that." "I already did." I pinched the envelope's corner and folded it in half. "I'm pulling all my support until you start showing some respect." A ripple of gasps passed through the guests behind him. Kids paused. Mid-chase, bubble wands dangling. Marissa appeared at the edge of the lawn, face pale. Tom swallowed. "You're punishing a 7-year-old for your own grudges." I stepped forward, closing the space between us. "No, I'm teaching adults that promises mean something and that generosity shouldn't be met with mockery." My heart pounded as I met his eyes. Every bill I paid was more than money, it was a piece of my life. And I'm done giving pieces away to people who won't even notice when they're missing. He stared at me, something unreadable flickering in his gaze. I let the silence stretch, heavy like a held breath. Behind him, Grandma Ellen clutched her pearls, eyes anxious. Marissa's lips trembled, as if she wanted to speak but found no words strong enough. I folded the envelope again, pressing it flat in my palm. "I'm leaving it here," I told him, voice soft but firm. "Figure it out yourselves. Good luck." Tom's lips twitched. Was it anger or uncertainty? He opened his mouth, then closed it. I didn't wait to see what he'd say next. With my shoulders back and that envelope in hand, I turned away, walking through the gate and past the rows of folding chairs. Each step was a promise to myself. No more hiding in the shadows of my own kindness. Behind me, the party faltered, music stuttered, chatter stalled. I could almost feel the collective heartbeat of shock in the air. I didn't look back, not yet. I didn't need to, because whatever came next, I knew I'd already won the most important fight, the one for my own dignity. And out there, past the gate, I could taste freedom and the kind of quiet I'd never felt before. What would they do now that the safety net was gone? The hush hit me like a wave. I stepped into the center of the lawn, the envelope still clutched in my hand, and raised my voice just enough to cut through the murmurs. "Everyone, can I have your attention?" My heart pounded, but I felt strangely steady, like I was standing on solid ground for the first time in years. Plastic cups paused mid-lift. Children froze, mouths half open, their sticky fingers hanging in the air. Tom and Marissa exchanged panicked glances. Grandma Ellen's powder blue cardigan rustled as she took a slow step toward me. I held up the crisp envelope. "This," I said, voice clear, "was meant to cover Jonah's tuition next semester." I let the words sink in. "I've decided to cancel the payment." A ripple of confusion raced through the crowd. Little faces tilted upward, bewildered. My nephew's wide eyes locked onto mine. He didn't understand why Aunt Claire was suddenly standing so far away. Tom's jaw clenched. "Claire, what are you doing?" I let him simmer in his question. "I'm done being your secret benefactor," I replied, tone unwavering. "I'm done watching you make jokes about my help, then acting surprised when I'm not around to fix everything." Marissa's lips quivered. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Grandma Ellen's hand trembled as she reached for her pearls. "Good luck covering next semester," I continued, and this time I let my eyes sweep over every adult standing there. "Because I've canceled the check, and I'm walking away." Silence settled over the yard like dust. Somewhere, a soda can popped open with a soft fizz, but no one moved to take it. The magician's props lay abandoned on the grass, half inflated, balloons bobbing in the breeze. I pressed the envelope flat, then let it flutter from my fingers. It landed among the party favors with a soft thud pastel wrapping paper and rubber ducks. The sight of it, discarded and alone, made my chest tighten. "Tom." Finally found his voice, low and rough. "You can't just do that." "I already did," I said, turning on my heel. The grass whispered under my boots as I strode toward the gate. With each step, the weight of years of unacknowledged sacrifice melted away. Behind me, Marissa's voice broke the silence. "Claire, please, don't go." But I didn't slow. I paused at the gate, one hand on the latch. I glanced back at Jonah, watching me with a mix of fear and pride. He took a small step forward, but his mother caught his arm. Then I let go of the latch and walked out, leaving stunned silence in my wake, and a family finally forced to reckon with the cost of their entitlement. I didn't look back again. The dusk air was cool on my face, and for the first time, I felt free. The yard felt impossibly quiet without me. Empty cups and half-eaten cake slices lay abandoned on folding tables. The pastel balloons drooped against the oak, and the magician's hat sat overturned where no one was left to wear it. Children paused in mid-chase, foam swords raised like questions, their laughter gone as if someone had turned off the sun. I stood in the driveway, hand on the car door, listening to my heartbeat. Slow back to normal. Behind me, the gate swung gently in the breeze. I didn't turn around. Footsteps pounded on the gravel. "Claire, wait please." Marissa's voice cracked as she reached me, cheeks streaked with tears. She clutched the edge of my sweater. "This is too far, you can't leave like this." Slid free from her grip, stepping onto the pavement. "I already did," I said softly. Her shoulders slumped as she realized there was nothing left to say. I held up my arms in a gentle shrug, no anger, just exhaustion. "I needed you to see what silence feels like." My eyes flicked toward the yard, Tom standing by the gift table, face pale, glancing at the envelope still lying among the spoils of the party. Grandma Ellen hovered behind him, hand to her mouth, disbelief tremoring in her posture. Marissa swallowed. "Tom's coming," she whispered. We both turned as he strode toward us, unsteady, the loose ends of his tie flapping. His usual smirk was gone, replaced with something raw realization, maybe even regret. He stopped a few feet away, gaze fixed on my back. "Claire, his voice broke. I let the silence stretch, giving weight to everything I'd said and done. Above us, the sky had softened from afternoon gold to dusky pink. Somewhere, a bubble drifted past, untouched. Grandma Ellen cleared her throat behind Tom. "Claire, dear, words aren't enough. Come home." I looked at her for a long moment. Then I shook my head gently. "Not tonight." My voice held steady, and I felt it echo in the still air. Marissa stepped closer, voice trembling. "We need you, please." I closed my eyes, taking in the scene one last time, their stunned faces. The sagging decorations, the quiet ache of a party without its heart. "I need to know you can stand on your own," I said. "And someday, I hope you find your own voice." A distant car honk snapped me back to the present. I opened my eyes to the street ahead, painted in twilight hues. I slid into the driver's seat, exhaling a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Marissa pressed her face to the window. "Claire." I offered a small, sad smile before turning the key. The engine purred, and I pulled away slowly, leaving the driveway on the echoes of my silence behind me. As the taillights faded, I realized the real test was just beginning. Would they learn to listen when I wasn't there to speak? Evening settled like dust over Marissa's living room. She sat hunched at the edge of the couch. Papers spread across the coffee table, bills, bank statements, unopened envelopes with bright red stamps. The remains of the party were nowhere to be seen, as if clearing them away might erase what happened. The silence was heavier now, not the awkward kind from earlier, but a deeper silence, the kind that made you hear your own thoughts louder than you wanted to. Tom stood by the front door, arms crossed, phone in hand. Every few minutes, he'd unlock it, swipe, then lock it again. She's not answering, he muttered. Like Claire was expected to just pick up after all that. Their son, Jonah, sat cross-legged on the carpet, holding the small dinosaur figurine. Claire had brought in the gift bag. Is Aunt Claire mad at me? He asked, voice barely above a whisper. Marissa looked up, her eyes glassy. No, sweetie, she's not mad at you. Then why did she leave? The question gutted her. She reached out, brushing his hair back gently. Because grown-ups don't always say thank you the way they should. Tom sighed and sat down across from her. For once, there was no sarcasm, no bravado. I didn't think she'd really cancel the check. Marissa looked at the bills. We've been acting like she owes us everything, she said. Like she's just part of the furniture. Always there. Always fixing things. She swallowed. We never said thank you, not really. She cool off, Tom said, but it didn't sound like he believed it. Outside, streetlights blinked on, one by one. Inside, the quiet grew thick again. Jonah lay down on the rug, still cradling the dinosaur. She always comes to my birthday, Marissa closed her eyes. In another part of town, I drove beneath flickering neon signs and tired traffic lights. The kind that take longer to change in smaller cities like this. My hands rested easy on the wheel. I didn't know where I was going yet, but for the first time in years, I wasn't driving toward someone else's emergency. The phone buzzed once in the console. I didn't look. Some part of me still ached for Jonah's little face. But I'd learned something today, that respect isn't something you ask for. It's something you stop giving yourself away without. And sometimes, silence says more than sacrifice ever could.